Welcome to the Marvel Alliance podcast, where we cover anything and everything to do with the Marvel Universe. From the comics, TV, and movies, we will go from Earth 616 to the Mojoverse to the TVA, or what's left of the TVA, if anything, in order to bring the Marvel Universe right to you. I'm the man without fear, Chris.
I'm your friendly neighborhood Brent.
Alliance
Assemble.
Assemble Volume 187. And yeah, that was an episode.
Damn. That's I mean that sums up my thoughts on the whole episode, but that was something. Oh my gosh, that was it. Didn't we'll get there. Did not go the way I expected.
Well, as I was saying, I was so happy to find the GIF I did for the live tweet, because that GIF of Miss Minutes just, yeah, she's something else.
She's
Miss
so
Minutes.
creepy. Yeah, on my second watch, I took a picture of the TV. I was like, I gotta take this picture right now.
you did,
And I will be extracting that GIF from that, or that GIF from that tweet. Don't you worry. I
oh
gotta figure out how to do it again because things are changing. Thank you, Elon. But
yeah.
I will find it.
Well, we already got some people popping off in the chat at that point. We got Mr. Hines in the chat. Yes, we are tardy. I blame me for that one. That we got it down a rabbit hole of discussion offline. So
Hey, we work in education. Do as I say, not as I do.
yes. Phil in the chat. There we go, my boys. Glad to have you all here at that point. David's in the chat. Stopping by before going on vacation, continuing on vacation.
David, get back to your vacation.
Yes,
you know what you're supposed to be doing right now.
I will live vicariously through you right now. And we got Julio. I'd rather get chased by Michael Myers than Miss Minutes. Oh, that says something right there.
Story checks out.
Yeah, there we go. Facts right there. And okay. Just an announcement on this one. I have to check before I say this, because not too often do we get this on Marvel Alliance, but yeah, I don't know if this is really her or not. Miss Minutes thinks possibly Tara Strong just tweeted us back or liked us. I'm not sure if it's a real account or not.
I just assume nobody is anymore.
Yep, it could be, but yeah. So Tara Strong just liked the Marvel Alliance tweet.
Nice.
Yep, that's official.
That's
that's pretty awesome. All right, well, yeah. So how's your week been, Brent?
Overall, it's been pretty good. Work was, mercifully a slower week for me. I actually got a lot done today. It was super slow, which meant I was actually really productive. Still thinking about this episode from last night. That's such a wild episode. We were talking earlier that we really didn't have any news, and then we got some Daredevil news, which I'm looking forward to talking about. So overall, it's in and strong for me. What about you?
Yeah, it's this is my last full week of doing half and half between both my buildings. So officially on Tuesday will be my last day at my current school, and then November 1st I will start officially at my new school. So, sad to be leaving my old school, but excited at the future and the opportunities at my new school. So it's been very stressful this week. A lot of just going back and forth, half and half each day. It's try to be all things to all people.
That is a struggle. That is a struggle.
It is, but yeah. So otherwise, good week. Prepping for Halloween for the kids and everything like that. How about you? Your kids already figured out what they want to do?
Yeah. We've the Halloween costumes are picked out, and went to a trick or treat tonight. Actually, the second one the kids have been at. There's a Halloween parade tomorrow morning. I think they're going to, and with the grandparents. I'm not sure. The status of me going is still up in the air, but if not, I'll be working on saving the city in a particular video game. And other than that, yeah, there it is.
Yeah, I can't remember. I know my daughter's dressing up as Ariel. My son keeps on changing his mind.
That's what they do. My son is being Spider-Man for, I don't know, like the fifth year, and he's been Miles. He's been Peter. He's doing Miles this year. Specifically the one with the coat. We found the coat on Amazon. Like, it says Spider-Verse. It looks just like the movie. I'm in the Midwest. It's looking like it's going to be cold this year. So I'm like, I told my wife, if he wants to be Spider-Man again, let's try and build in build it like get this version. Build in a coat to the costume, so then you don't have to argue with them about covering up their costume with a coat. So we'll see what it is.
Yeah. And Phil's confirmed, yep, that is the real Tara Strong. So, well, thank you, Miss Strong. We appreciate it, and the creepiness that you have given to Miss Minutes at that point. So, thank you. That was a nice surprise. So, but all right. Well, let us get into before we get into everything, we got to do the lovely show network plug. So we are part of the Geek Ultimate Alliance network with 7 shows covering the wide range of geek and nerdom. To see the full schedule, check out the show notes below and subscribe to the Geek Ultimate Alliance network on Twitter at GUA Pod Network so you know when all the shows drop. We also have a Patreon, so if you want to throw a couple of shekels our way, we've got 2 tiers, our dollar tiers, our tip jar to say, hey, you think we're doing a good job? And then we've got our $5 tier with ad-free episodes, early access episodes, and Patreon-exclusive shows, including our show, We Can Watch This All Day, the Marvel Alliance MCU Infinity Saga rewatch. We have 21 episodes up there, and you and I just recorded earlier this week, episode 22, Infinity War. And that is dropping, I think, Monday. Is that correct, Brent? Nope, can't hear you. I think we'll give him a second, but I believe yes, it's the last Monday of the month, so we will be.
Is that better?
Yep, there we go. He's back.
Do I sound normal again?
Yes, you sound much better, my friend.
I was there and I was trying to fix them, so sorry about that, guys. Yes, Monday is Infinity War. It's scheduled to drop that morning, so look for that. Hopefully, when you wake up, and if you wake up before it drops, then go back to bed.
Yep. So it'll be there. So it's a very good very fun, retrospective looking back at that. But we got the DC Alliance guys doing their DC through the years. We got Katie looking at her Star Wars canon corner, looking at the comics there. We've got the getting ready to be the conclusion of season 2 of Joe and walk through the multiverses, 30 plus days of Halloween. So I know it's been he powers through. My hat's off to him in doing this every single day, even if it's just 10 minutes. That's a lot, and you are again, tip of the hat to you, Joe. You've done a lot of good work.
Absolutely, completely co-signed. Every day I'm like, oh look, there's another one. It's like, of course the month isn't over, but I don't know. I don't know how he does it.
Yeah, no idea. But yes, a lot of great content. We want to thank our patrons. We cannot do this without your support. And if you're not a member of our Patreon, go to www.patreon.com/GUA network. Enjoy all the back content. We got our tiers out there. Unfortunately, this month we're not going to do our meetup. A lot of schedules were not working. But we're definitely going to have one November, so we're already starting to plan that. But if you can't join us on Patreon, take 30 to 90 seconds and rate and review the Marvel Alliance solo feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcast. We greatly appreciate it. And last, but certainly not least, we want to thank our official sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com. For your omnibus hardcover collected edition needs, JP and the crew at OPB have got it going on with excellent customer service, immaculate packaging, ships around the world. Got some new final order cutoffs going on right now. We got Punisher Max coming back into print by Garth Ennis. That's coming back into print. And for the first time ever in Omni format, Spider-Man by Michelini and Bagley. That has been a long requested thing from Marvel. It is finally being produced.
So the art, I've said it before, but I mean his art, man, just
look at that standard edition cover. That was my choice.
That's a beautiful cover.
So we've also got Fantastic Four by Wade and Ringo coming back into print as well. So a lot of great stuff with that. So if you want to use that code MarvelGUA at checkout to get $2 off every single order, and we want to thank them for being our official sponsor. All right, so yep, so all in the games in the chat right now. So him and Phil are having a conversation. So it looks to be, we're gonna be having some fun time. So let us get into it, Brent. Oh yeah, one thing I do want to say this. I always forget to do it until after the show. World's Finest True Believers. We got a new episode coming out this Sunday morning. My friend BJ Kicks is coming back on for a very appropriate story. It's something one of his first graphic novels that he ever got to collect, getting into it a few years ago, and the images you'll see, but it is very appropriate for Halloween, so hope you all enjoy that and check that out Sunday morning. All right, Brent.
Perfect.
Loki season 2, episode 4, entitled Heart of the TVA. So this is hard to this is hard to kind of get into without spoilers, but wow, what a, like, if this were like a mid-season kind of like, cliffhanger, or it could have been a whole season cliffhanger, man, they definitely left it.
So this episode did things that I thought we were going to see in episode 6. This episode did one thing. Well, you may figure it out, but we'll hold off until we're across the spoilers. It did one thing that I thought I was going to see in Infinity War and didn't see. It blew me away. And at the same time, there were some smaller moments, some more personable moments, some characters interacting, and it just the whole thing, top to bottom, fantastic episode.
I absolutely agree. We were hearing from pretty much all the people I kind of follow and listen to that got screeners that I trust, and they're not toxic at all. Every one of them was saying that episode 4 was going to be the game changer episode of the season. And they just couldn't wait for people to actually see it. And they weren't lying. Was it like the best episode ever of all Disney Plus shows? No, I wouldn't call it that. But for this series, yeah, this was on the level of some of those key episodes of the first season in surprise, because I had a feeling that the loom would eventually go, but not in this way. Like the stuff that had happened prior to that was like, wow.
Yeah, I'm impressed that, granted, my mute game is up there, but I
Mhm.
didn't see spoilers about this. And I'm impressed at the number of people that I'm pretty sure got review copies, advanced copies, who didn't spoil what was going to happen in this episode. I saw some of that same sentiment that you mentioned, that the fourth episode was a lot of people's favorites. Not everybody's, but a lot of people's favorites. I probably would share that overall. And just I was amazed, and right out of the gate, like, it's just like I'm loving this. I'm love the way it opened. I'm loving the way we're going to it. I think we need to just get across the wall so we can talk openly.
Yeah, so let's jump over that wall, through it, blow it up. I don't know. Go through time in order to get through it. So we will do all the things. So we're going to take our first ad break. So if you have not watched episode 4 of Loki season 2, stop now, watch it so that you can discuss it. But if you don't care about spoilers, we're about to spoil the heck out of it. So as you know, these ads help keep the lights on in the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. We don't get to choose what ads come on, and they could be a bit loud. Give it that 3 count before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. And we are back. All right, so let's get into this. So the episode begins with the studio logo kind of shaking as we travel into one of the strands of time. And this really feels like, I'm new into Doctor Who. I'm slowly making my way through it and enjoying it, kind of like a slow burn for me. But it feels like it's they're doing kind of their takeoff of the intro to Doctor Who.
So I haven't seen Doctor Who, despite a friend of mine's telling me that I should. I can't do it because my brain wouldn't let me start it. I'd have to start it at either the very beginning or the beginning of the modern era, both of which are farther back than I have the time for right now. But I loved the opening of this. It reminded me so much of the opening of season 6, or I'm sorry, of episode 6 of season 1, which obviously it's meant to, as it invokes that and that a lot of that aesthetic as they go into the Citadel.
Yeah, and it also is like very much echoes where where we had season 1, the season 1 finale, where we were traveling the universe and we started going into a black hole where the castle was at the end of time, and black holes have, appeared throughout the season at that point as well. OB had also brought them up during the first episode, and the TVA is located actually inside a black hole. And here we are getting a similar shot, but now where we are, the castle at the end of time is now like a rock crumbling apart, and timelines are spreading out everywhere. Everything's getting out of control with it. So it just seems like legitimately we are at the end of time.
Right. We're at the end of time there, and they're starting. Okay, last week's episode, which we need to get
Oh
overall your
yeah,
thoughts
sure.
on. But last week, Heinz and I were talking about it, and the episode ends with Miss Minutes, super creepy, saying that Ravonna is going to be upset. She has a big secret and she's going to tell her, right? I'm going to be honest with you. I thought we were going to have to wait a little bit before finding that out. Right before, I thought
Yeah.
bare minimum halfway through this episode, but more likely like episode 5, episode 6 kind of thing. And the fact that they open with at the end of the time like that and go into the Citadel, I'm like, holy cow, we actually are going to find out right away. Like out of the gate, they surprised me with it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where they don't waste a lot of time, and I like that we're not going to drag this out because there's a lot that happens in this episode, and why not just pick up where we're all wondering. So, I guess quickly my opinion on episode 3. I enjoyed it, but it had some very good character developments for Ravonna and Miss Minutes starting the beginning of the creepy path down, which I found pretty entertaining. But for those two characters, they were the stars of that. Everything else just kind of felt like, it was okay for me. So,
Sure.
so
I get that, and I just seeing that recording it again. Well, we're across the spoiler wall. I
yeah,
can talk openly. The video recording, or I guess you call it a video, the playback, if you will. I don't know. It wasn't like any TV I've ever seen of He Who Remains talking with Ravonna, and it's basically the audio that we heard playing back to Loki in
mm-hmm.
episode 1. Again, I thought that kind of thing would take us longer. So Miss Minutes gives us the secret. It says there was a lot of speculation last week, some of it from us, that Ravonna had her mind wiped,
Yeah.
or a lot of speculation that not that she had her mind wiped, but that she was a different person. And by a different person, I mean a different version of Ravonna, but that He Who Remains / Victor Timely / King has been pulling in and is almost just like uses them like, oh, give me a Ravonna. Okay, this Ravonna died or whatever. Get me a new one, right? And that speculation has absolutely been there. Obviously, we have confirmation this week that not that that's never happened. I think it's feasible that it's still in play, but that this specific Ravonna has been around for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and has had her mind wiped, right? What they call it, Protocol 42. And it's just like, for DC, that would have been Protocol 52, right? For Star Wars, it's Order 66. It's like, I'm like, is there a Marvel number like that? I mean, 42 is definitely a Spider-Man reference number, but other than that, I don't know. But it just, to me, such a fascinating opening. I really wanted, I wish we could see, and maybe we will, I don't know. I wish we could see, though, more of what was happening around the TVA around that time when He Who Remains mind wiped her, when he mind wiped everybody, or had Miss Minutes do his dirty work for it.
Yeah, and it was rather interesting because I just didn't know where Miss Minutes was going, and with what she was bringing out, like you said, it was the recording. We get to see it kind of play out at that point. Now, he says, Ravonna Renslayer, you are quite a marvel. I would be proud to lead you. You made a difference in this war. Thank you for being on my team, for us, for all time. And Renslayer says, always. Which became the slogan of the TVA.
And was kind of a long beat before she said it. And I'm like, if you don't say always, I'm going to be so mad. Like, do not leave me hanging. You have to finish the saying.
Mm-hmm. Now, Ravonna is also wearing her Minutemen uniform, which is something she had when she picked up Sylvie, if you remember back in season 1. So as we know, she'd go back to be a judge, and then, obviously happened after her mind wipe. Now, an interesting thing about what she says is that the words "for us, for all time, always," that "for us" is a bit sticks out because the TVA saying is for all time always. He who remains completely removed the us because he is the only one who is going to rule.
Right, right. He's the only one. He clearly doesn't care about anyone else. Like that's maybe a bit harsh to say, but he doesn't care about anyone else that he's willing to change his plans. He will still do whatever he
Mm-hmm.
needs to for him to be the effective god at the end of time.
Yeah. And remember, Victor says, like, I don't do partners. And he used Ravonna as a way to get to the top. He also touches upon how he made a difference, how she made a difference in the war, showing that she was one of the keys when it came to winning it. And Renslayer is the love of Kang's life in the comics, and potentially the other ones who didn't have her. So he didn't just help. She didn't just help you just with the army. She helped you win the war. And in the comics, she was killed and then split off into so many different alternative realities. And Kingsley always encountered her. Still, though, they were basically star-crossed lovers, always doomed to never be together. Either she was killed or she tried to kill Kang. So that's going to be very interesting to see how this is working out.
Did you read? We talked about it last week with Travis. Did you read the 2001
Yep.
King the Conqueror story?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Again, let me reiterate, fantastic story. Go read it. But okay, perfect. Because I did wonder, like, if there was a chance, if we see more versions of the Jonathan Majors character in this show. Obviously, we've seen like hundreds of them at the end of Quantumania. I wondered if there's a chance for us to see other lives that Ravonna may have led. We know she was a principal, right? Back on the Sacred Timeline, but who knows what else he does with them? Like, does he pull them, immediately mind wipe them and put them in as a TVA, or does he have them do other stuff to gain other skills? Like, we don't know the process. And I would love to see, like, I almost want an episode of like the life of Ravonna Renslayer. And I feel like if this was a 10 episode, 12 episode season, we might get one of those. With only 2 episodes left, I really don't know that they have time for it, but I'd be super interested in it.
Yeah, Katie's on the train of saying right now, she's in the live chat real quick, saying Renslayer for Kang variant makes it especially interesting after the reaction from Loki Sylvie Love's story.
That's what I thought. It's like, that made a lot of people uncomfortable. So they're just going to quite literally double down.
Mm-hmm. So Miss Minutes pops up, not creepy this time, but, the normal pop-up says, ready for another game of chess. And, as we learned last week, she was originally an AI designed for this, but he who remains gave her an extra program that allowed her to grow. She has remained his loyal servant, and, he commands her, Protocol 42, to erase everyone's memories, not just hers, but everyone's at that point. And as Miss Minutes, disappears and begins that process, he just says, sorry.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
My bad.
That's it. That's all. Just
yep.
Sorry.
So he's showing some regret, but again, he just won this war. All his variants are gone. So he's going to, ensure that no one else can kind of take it away from him. And so inside, we pick up exactly where we left off with Ravonna and Miss Minutes last week, with the shot of their positions being exactly the same. And now here we go to the TVA to watch Victor Timely arriving. And I was kind of like, oh, I forgot, like he arrived after the fact.
Right. He arrives after the fact, and it was kind of weird at first that he was just wandering around by himself. I get why it happened, but it's like, they you would think would have been all over him, or you would almost feel like there'd be some sort of alarm alerting the whole TVA to his presence, right? It's like, oh, the big boss is in town, right? Instead, he's just walking around and doing whatever he wants, and it wasn't long before he saw the others, but still, I was just a little surprised at it. But I did enjoy the look on his face when he saw like those statues of Kang, of He Who Remains, that Loki had pruned the wall off of back in episode 1. That was fun to see.
No, it really was. And you saw him seeing the other heads. And then you see him like looking in front of the murals. And I was wondering, in the sense of like, wow, it's one of those things like, how is he kind of processing this? You know what I mean?
Exactly. Like, that's got to be super jarring. Like, you've been told, like, these people, including this creepy looking ghost monster clock thing, show up and they tell you, like, you have a greater destiny, right? Like your ideas, your theories, they work. You just don't have the technology. Well, we come from a place where we are descended upon from what you have done, right? Like that has to like be very jarring. And then
Yeah.
he goes through this effective portal in the time door and sees like this place that looks nothing like where he comes from, and his face is all over, like quite literally bigger than his head is these statues of just his face. And like i I mean, they say don't get a big head, but how could he not? Like they
Oh
literally
yeah.
showed him these giant heads.
And all in the game saying there would definitely be a Renslayer episode if it was 8 episode season. Want to see these 45, 55 minute shows to get 8 instead of 6 episodes. I fully in agreement. And speaking about the time, this has been a very consistent season for the most part, staying in the upper levels of the 40 to 55 minute episodes.
Yeah, I hope they don't turn around and have a 35 minute
God,
episode. Like
not next week.
in general, it's not too like I the runtime is not an automatic like, oh, it's terrible because it's shorter. Like, and it drives me nuts when people say automatically, oh, it's shorter than the other one, so it's gonna suck. But with longer episodes, they just have more time to expand on stuff.
Hmm.
Sometimes that's a bad thing. Sometimes expanding on things just draws it out. But when it's done right and you have more time, like this was a 50-minute episode, you get an opportunity for these conversations to happen between OB and Victor Timely, or the conversation between Loki and Sylvie. And
Yep.
in a 30-minute episode, you either neither of those are as interesting and fun as they are, or you don't get one of them. One of them gets cut entirely. So
Yeah.
in general, I still prefer the longer episodes as well.
And the idea of like, have we seen like the definitive Kang? And so I found this the director of Loki had spoken with Screen Rant and said that I don't know that we've seen the definitive Kang yet. Not I know I said Loki, I meant Kang. The definitive Kang yet. In terms of what I would envision as the definitive Kang to be, I think there's still someone yet to come out of the shadows. So down the line, we may be getting a shot of the composition that he's that they're kind of alluding to. You know, it has been interesting seeing Victor in this moment, just kind of like seeing everything that he has been kind of thinking about at that point. But the fact that I don't know if will it be this season or will it be in the future projects, or will we have to wait until Kang Dynasty to see the definitive Kang, or did you know we can kind of say like He Who Remains is the definitive Kang, but what do we mean by the definitive Kang?
Right. And that Phil had asked last week if we thought we'd see that by the end of this season. And it's hard because you could make an argument that the Kang we saw in Quantumania was a truer Kang than any of the other variants that we've seen at this point. But you could also make an argument that Victor Timely is, because in the comics, Victor Timely was Kang. Like Kang had gone back in time. And He Who Remains is actually, I believe, like that version's a amalgamation of a couple characters forming a version of Kang. But regardless, there's a part of me that's almost like, yeah, I'm super interested in who the definitive Kang is, but I'm more interested in how they became the definitive Kang. How did they do it? Like, if you take He Who Remains at his word, he won the multiversal war that he tells us about at the end of season 1. Well, does that make him the definitive Kang? I don't know, because now his rotting corpse is just hanging out there at the end of time. So I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised at all still if we don't see it until Kang Dynasty, but maybe this will be something if we do get different variants of Kang beyond what we've seen already in this show. Maybe we will see the definitive Kang, but not know he's the definitive Kang until later.
Yeah, we will just have to see. We will, again, that's the fun of this journey, Brent. That's what I enjoy,
Absolutely.
So we see, Hunter B-15 approach Victor Timely, and interesting enough, this is a nice moment because both the I can't remember the actress's name for Hunter B-15, but her and Jonathan Majors both were together in Lovecraft Country. So that's a fun moment there. So Victor's at the point where he doesn't really know who to trust, and we can have both sides kind of pulling him back and forth on this one. Time is running out, and the Loom's going to go critical. Thank you all in the game. Wumi Masaku.
Masako. Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah, that's. I feel like I should have done that. B-15. She didn't have a lot that she did in this one, but I was super interested in the conversations she had with General Docs. I've seen some criticism that entire storyline was pointless, and or side story, whatever you want to call it. I disagree. I don't think it was pointless. She was proving, like Judge Gamble said, like, your words changed me, they could change her. So she's trying to inspire B-15 to get through to Docs, knowing that General Docs and her men will be valuable in defending against whatever is actually coming against them. Whatever's coming is going to help. And you know what? It worked. She did get through. And they even acknowledge, like, they basically both acknowledge, like, we don't agree on everything. But it's Stocks who says, but she has integrity, and I can work with that.
And remember, Gamble and Docs were in the comics, but they're clones of Mobius in the comics.
Yeah, so interesting. I actually don't know if I knew that, but it'd be interesting to see if we did find it. Now I'm like, are we going to get other Mobius, however you would say that, multiple versions of Mobius? Are we going to get more of them? I now want to see B-15 and Mobius interact more. We've seen it a few times now. I just knowing that, I didn't know that, I didn't realize that, or if I'm sure you told me at some point, I just forgot. But
Yeah.
I think that's super interesting.
Oh, it is. So now we cut across from the hot, fresh coffee machine that also pops up in the credits. And so we go down to the basement and see Victor meeting OB for the very first time, with the pair both being fans of each other, and wonder why they're fans of each other. And, now that I think this shows that we've got our theories wrong about OB, that of being one of the big bads. I just don't. I think this right here, this interaction, I don't see OB being one of the big bads.
Gosh, I hope not. This scene was charming as all get out. Seeing, like, the way that OB was talking, like, this brilliant scientist from the 19th century, blah, blah, blah. And then realizing, what did you say your name was? Oh, you're Victor? Like, I'm talking to you. And, like, he's like, you're the guy who wrote the book. And then Loki just puts it out there, like, your work is based on his work, and your work is based on his work. Well, which came first? And then Obi, really just the whole snake eating its tail. I'm like, isn't that what his name actually means?
That's exactly what it means. A little meta human there. Right?
Just that scene is awesome, and I feel like the loop theory I talked about last week of the whole thing's a giant loop, like that feels like it's gone through a spaghetti strainer, but at least some parts of it seem to be still, and this seems to still be there.
No, I think, and I like those kind of winks and nods for people that have been paying attention. I love it how they both ask for each other's autograph, and it kind of shows that maybe He Who Remains isn't solely the con man that we kind of saw last week.
Yeah, like, I mean, sure, con man, but he's got his heroes too, and just, will you sign my book? Only if you sign mine.
And bringing them a model of the loom they start to play out and plan, and it's kind of like a heist movie building off of the first episode. I absolutely love this when he brings out the model. It is a huge like tip of the hat callback to Back to the Future, where Doc Brown comes out and he brings out the model of Hill Valley as they're planning the time machine going back and forth. He says, I apologize, I didn't have much time, it's not to scale. And he's like, I could have done more work. And I was like, oh, I love it. I love that callback to Back to the Future. That was so fun.
And just how upset he is because Victor's right there. It's like the one guy, everyone else is like super impressed, but the one guy he wants to impress.
Exactly.
That whole scene was a fun scene. They're talking about the plan. OB makes a comment. Keep in mind, Sylvie's there, makes a comment. So, someone's making my life hard because they killed He Who Remains. Cut to Sylvie, and she's just smirking at the time, cracking up as I'm watching that. and then Mobius and Loki arguing over who it is in the suit that has to actually go out there and do it. And, I kind of thought, well, it's obviously going to be Loki. It's his show. And we already saw Mobius do that. So they're going to have Loki do it this time. Plus, he does have the godlike powers. So which granted, at the time they were dampened, but he's probably more likely to survive stuff than Mobius is, as it's worse. Of course, we'll find out a different plane was had, but such a fun scene overall.
Yeah, and we talk about the radiation at this point. Everything seems to be going like to play out at this point with Victor seeing his life works. He's going to see it actually put into fruition. They get ready to Mobius gets ready to have some key lime pie, and Sylvia isn't too happy with how relaxed the TVA is. When you think about it, it's pretty screwed up that they just murder millions of people en masse and just sit down like nothing ever happened. And, key lime pie, it fits into that kind of aesthetic of the 50s as well. And, this back and forth of inaction is going to get them nowhere. And it's putting things into place. It's basically Sylvie's kind of making a commentary on current government bureaucracy, and it's just an endless back and forth with nothing getting done.
Yeah, and she pretty much calls it out that Mobius, Loki and Mobius had that conversation where Mobius said he doesn't want to go see what happened in case it's something good. He doesn't want to know what he's missing on what would have been his timeline, his branch. Sylvie calls him out for you not going just makes it easier. You don't have a dog in the fight, so it's easier to you because they're just a line on the screen. Love that she called him out like that and put on this topic, put him in his place. And I hope that inspires Mobius to, provided they're around next episode, wants to see and look into what his life actually was like.
Exactly. And so, we head back into the kind of the prison room with X5 and Dox and all that. And X5 is desperate to get back to his life, which Dox mocks by calling him Brad. He was initially just a number, but because he made something for himself, he sees like he's more self-centered, and it's just giving him, it's killing him that he can't go back. Mm-hmm. And this is something that organizations like this prey on, and they want people all just following orders rather than acting on their own. Now, it's important to note that the judge themselves are given names, whereas the hunters are just letters and numbers. I find that interesting.
Just assigned a number, or maybe the judges are allowed to keep their names. So I wonder, have they told us what Ravona's name would have been?
Not yet. Dox possibly had to earn this at some point, much in the same way Ravonna will have. I actually wonder if He Who Remains calling her at the start was actually christening her with one. Probably not.
Could be, but I think I'd have to go back and look. I think the scene when we saw her in the principal's office had.
It did have her name.
It had her name. So I think maybe it's just like, well, they're probably mind wiped and then told what their name is. That's probably what he probably just uses the same name. No reason to overcomplicate it. That's probably what's happening there.
Simplest explanation could be the right one. So at this point, B-15 visits and begs them to help, but she's too stubborn to do what's best for herself and the TVA. Rather than having things change, she'd rather choose self-destruction, which is kind of tragic when you think about the character.
I mean, at first, that's the way it seems to come out anyway, for sure. And absolutely. She is definitely a tortured soul.
Yeah. And you cut back after this to Sylvie and Loki at the automat. And I just love this, how the signs are up here, just kind of enforcing all the fun stuff about the TVA. One that says bring your own cup. And if you forget to remember to bring it next time. There's also one that says you can only have one slice of pie, even though there's an infinite amount in rotation there.
Right, plenty of it. Why is it just that one kind? But
yeah,
hope nobody likes pumpkin, because geez.
No, I'm good with key lime pie. I'm sorry, but that may hurt some people. But yeah, key lime pie is definitely one of my favorites. The pair talk about how she couldn't kill Victor, and with her sparing him because he looked scared. And on the other side of this, He Who Remains wanted it to happen because he'd achieved everything he was after. It was kind of like when Thanos relaxed after carrying on the snap because he had achieved everything he had done.
Sure. Can't really argue with that.
Loki talks about the events of Thor 1 when he had banished his brother to Earth. He saw his change of character as a weakness, but now he sees it as strength. it's important to bear in mind that Loki keeps referencing these early Phase 1 movies because they're all that's happened to him. This Loki escaped after the Battle of New York, so we don't have Loki experiencing the Dark World and everything after that. He's seen it, but he hasn't personally experienced it.
Yeah, he can't really draw, connections between what's happening to him now and what he saw there, like he did the observation with Thor, that way with that, because that's all he has. Absolutely great point there. I
Mm-hmm.
hadn't thought of it that way. I just enjoyed that he did it. I just
Mm-hmm.
enjoy when he references those. Like he gave us that description of the Avengers movie.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I got mad and I wasn't tactical and I threw Iron Man out the window or whatever his words
Yes,
were.
he did.
And here, gives us a little bit of a taste of how he views the events of Thor.
Mm-hmm. And Phil brings that out. Such a good moment for Loki to reflect on the events and how he's learned from it. And he calls Sylvie out, saying her sparing Victor wasn't weakness; it showed that she's grown. Sylvie just sees the TVA as being evil, but Loki explains that it can end up being better because of people like Mobius and B-15. They're currently working away to save as many branches as possible, as which Loki is out there as also what he's trying to do and what Sylvie was trying to do.
Absolutely. Just trying to save as many people. And this conversation, it, well, I thought of you while watching this because you had the fact or fiction about Loki becoming He Who Remains, or
Uh-huh.
becoming the new He Who Remains, like
Mm-hmm.
taking up that position. And he directly calls that out. Maybe we need to be running this place, like full on directly calls it out. And Sylvie has a great response. You just want to play God. And again, I'm just waiting for Loki to respond with the only thing he could respond: "We are gods." I'm like, perfect answer.
I'm waiting for it to happen. If it doesn't happen this season, I think it's gonna happen at some point.
I mean, this clearly says it's on the table, right? Like, there's no
Yep.
room for doubt. The Loki character is actively thinking about that.
Yep. Hey, pulling a Thanos, I'll just do it myself.
It's
So
fine. I'll do it myself. That's right.
So he wants to make the TVA something better, but Sylvie says something that, foreshadows the ending, And I think Loki is clearly going to still try to fix it. And, it's I hope it's difficult now for Sylvie says I hope. Hope is difficult, for her to understand. There's a lot of relying on hope in that Victor doesn't become He Who Remains. This could make the TVA something good, which all timelines are open and respected. As we know, through the temporal looms destroyed, meaning that everything is now out in the open, which will lead to into the multiversal war. This is something that that this season was initially going to be focused on, with the creative team talking about how that was their initial plan. However, Marvel told them to scale back for this more personal story, which we have here. Sylvie says, so, as you said, so you're just going to show him behind the curtain, which is a clear reference to not only He Who Remains, but also The Wizard of Oz.
So you have to ask the obvious question: are we going to see the multiversal war in Secret Wars? I assume we will. I mean, it certainly lends itself to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder, is that specifically why they told him to scale that back? Probably. But hopefully some of their ideas show up at least.
I hope so. So Sylvie asks if they're just going to send him home, but Loki says you can't just give him free will and walk away. Again, showing that Loki is the one who will in my opinion, will really be the one in charge.
Yeah, like you can't just step away from it all. So it'll be really curious to find out what happens. At the same time, I'm sure they can get there, but only 2 episodes left. I am starting to be like, I want another season. I want this to take longer for them to get there.
I want it too. So with Docs and X5, we see Ravonna returns to offer them a deal, and she also says this place is going to become a crater in the cosmos, making me think that the rock with the castle is indeed where it is located at one point.
Yeah, I mean, overall, yeah, it's where this is going to be. Where I really don't have much to add to that one. I completely agree with you on that. And I'm gonna be honest, I lost my train of thought.
No,
It'll come back to me.
So Ravonna says she wants to restore stability in exchange for they'll get a life on whatever timeline they want. And I wonder though, if in this loom the loom being destroyed, that's what ends up getting ends up getting them one in the end. X5 sides with her because he wants to be the celebrity again. He wants to do it. And he turns against Docs, whereas she sticks to her principles. She even wants him to side with them and calls him Bradley. In the end, they all die instead of going with Ravonna. It's such a outstanding final line, and man, the look at Miss Minutes, absolutely psychopathic when she calls up the box and everyone else is in the box and they're crushing it, and just that creepy excitement of Miss Minutes, just like, oh my goodness gracious, come on, man.
So Ravonna tells him, I believe she said, you can have a place on the timeline anywhere you want, basically. You can have the life you want on the timeline. But she's all about, Ravonna clearly wants to prune the branches and everything too. Wouldn't that just create more variance if they did that? Because if she's talking to a variant, then wouldn't putting them on a different timeline permanently create a I don't know. It seemed like something she would say, knowing that she couldn't possibly back it up, because she's just gonna kill them when she's done with them anyway. Like, she certainly doesn't seem to have any qualms with getting rid of them as soon as they're no longer useful to her, based on her inaction when Miss Minutes started. So I'm like, you may, like, let's say Brad were to survive all this and that Ravonna was back in charge. I don't think Brad's getting a spot on the timeline. I think his best case scenario is he gets mind wiped.
I would say so. It wouldn't be bad. So now elsewhere we see Victor Timely is integrated into the loom with him, and then going out and to the hot cocoa machine. I love how he's more interested in that over any other cool stuff in there.
Well, and
in the TVA.
It caught his attention earlier too.
Oh, it did, yeah. When Mobius brought it in.
Even before that, when they're in the hallway, there's a thing where he sees it and he kind of turns around and stops to stare at it for a second. Speculation going around the hot cocoa machine. Did Victor Timely know what was about to happen? Did he purposely want to go to that machine?
I have theories on that.
Okay.
I have theories later on that.
Okay, fair.
But, it goes back to He Who Remains. So, it's also, I think it's hilarious how Mobius was downloading explicit games to work with. A little interesting that he's a little naughty with that.
Yeah, you download stuff like that on your TemPad again just once, the one time. You don't make that mistake twice.
Cut to B-15 having the opposite reaction to Miss Minutes, which is when we get the great Jurassic Park reference. Access denied. Access denied.
Yeah.
So let's take our next ad break, because I know we're getting into some of the ending game at that point, the end game, as it were, Brent. So
we're in the end game now.
We are in the end game of the TVA. So, listeners, as always, these ads help keep the lights on the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. We don't get to choose what ads come on, and they can be a bit loud. Give it that 3 count before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. And we are back. So, we see Victor and D90 enjoying the hot chocolate, which is, D90 is not for long for this world. He is taken out by X5 or Brad.
I'm not gonna lie to you. When we first see like the pruning animation start, I wondered if Timely did something to the drink. I was like, did you give him some sort of like pruning poison or something in there that you just tricked it? Like, for just a second, I wondered and was like, and considered, it was Timely behind this.
Very much could have been. Now I love, rather than having to see the blood stain and discover the spilled hot chocolate, and they, instead of seeing the blood, they discover the spilled hot chocolate, and it lets them know something else is wrong. I wasn't expecting them to show the carnage. We heard it, and we kind of saw it through the eyes of Miss Minutes.
Yeah, I'm sure there's people out there who would have liked to have seen it. I don't think we needed it. Like, seeing B-15's reaction when she walked in that room, seeing the glee on Miss Minutes' face, like, that was enough for me.
Yeah, that really was. So Loki figures out that Renslayer actually wants the TVA, and we see Victor getting taken into the war room. I love when he goes, "Oh, thank God." and you can tell the guy's a slimy con man just by that.
Oh yeah, I mean when the whole time he's just not. When they get him, at first he's like, "Well, what if you don't like my answer?" And then he's like, "Well, I think you're gonna like my answer." I'm like, "You are shady as all get out as well."
Very much. Always trying to like stay alive in one way or another. As we guessed, excuse me, that at this point the loom starts to overload and we get the closure on what happened in the scene in the first episode. Personally, I was expecting this to come at the end of the season, but them dropping it here leaves a little bit of mystery still there.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's good that they left a little bit of mystery. I know that they obviously have a lot of mystery at the end of this episode, but that is going to be the stuff at the end of this episode is going to pretty much have to be picked up relatively early next week. So, leave a little bit of a tease for something else.
Yeah, so as we guessed, it was Loki pruning himself, as this was one of the past versions that could continue the path that would lead them there. This was mainly because Sylvie recognized him so clearly that she'd be working with another version. It was a great watching it play out, and we got the theory right. And so, some people were disappointed. Oh, we already predicted that. Well, we're just following the breadcrumbs.
See, I don't understand. Like, there are times I'm watching something and I actively try not to think about it because I just want to let them tell me. Like, my wife and we just watched Only Murders in the Buildings, all 3 seasons, and
Outstanding.
A great show. I for the most part didn't play the game of trying to figure out who the killer was. And
Okay.
I just, let me like, you guys tell me the story. Sure, of course, we're like, well, you suspect in episode 3 are obviously not the killer because there's still like 7 episodes left. But I was, for the most part, content. The Marvel shows are different. I do think about them a little bit more. And yeah, like so many of us had come to the conclusion that the most obvious person to prune him in episode 1 was him himself. And it fits because OB said Loki has to prune himself. He didn't even say Loki has to get pruned. So we don't know if something specific there. I enjoyed this scene a lot. Loki realizing it, and I know some people were like, he didn't even try and tell him anything, man. Like, like go to OB, or like OB's right, or be careful around Victor, or Ravona's alive. Like, he gave him no information. He also didn't have time. If you remember back in episode 1, the clock had ended. The timer was up. He had to prune himself immediately. And he's completely lucky that the future version of him stumbled across him. This Loki remembers that and went through with it. It made total sense to me. If they had a conversation, well, that would be fun. Don't get me wrong. It would not have made sense. They didn't have time. They literally were out of time.
No, they were. Trapped in the elevator by Miss Minute, Sylvie ends up twisting the wires to free herself, which also explains why she had to pry the doors open. Seeing Loki see himself also works really well too, and I love how they kind of realize what's playing out at that moment.
I was glad that I mean, one, like, you pretty much knew when you saw the elevators, oh, we're getting that scene now, right? Like, sit up a little in your seat. And I like when it happens, it's like, oh, you got my attention with this. I enjoyed though that she took him at his word. This is going to make sense in a little bit or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, she just took him at his word. I was glad because I was worried she was going to think he was a fake or a different version or a different variant and, throw down with him. And thankfully that didn't happen.
What did you think? The phone ringing, him picking up. Were you disappointed what was on the other end?
I was surprised.
As all the game literally just
yeah,
I think that's good timing.
I was surprised in the sense of I thought it would be something more ominous, something grander, right? Like
a warning.
Yes,
tip.
like that's what I thought it was going to be. The fact that it was just OB, I'm saying just OB, like he's not awesome and delightful, and I'm super glad he's still in the show. I was fine with it. I think it plays great. He's like, hey, Miss Minutes is causing this problem. He's just working the problem, right? The only question is, how did he know what phone to call? Well, maybe he tracked him through the TVA or something like that. Maybe he had a way he could track him. I'll give him credit for having the tech to know where he's at in the TVA for the most part. OB, maybe not everyone else. But my favorite part though was when he says, if I reboot it, we have these negatives, this, and this. And one of the thises was the dampeners for all the magic get turned off. And just the way Loki and Sylvie screamed to do it, I'm like, yes, we're getting some powers. I was actually a little surprised we didn't see more magic used after that. But here's my question: does that include the same dampeners that make Infinity Stones into paperweights? Or are those still a function of their outside their own universe, like in the comics? We don't know. They didn't tell us, so we just have to guess.
Yeah, it'd be the definition of what is considered magic versus, like stones, their energy. One, I guess, consider it could be, and some, semantics could be considered magic as well. Yeah, that'd be an interesting point. Now in doing this, it locks Miss Minutes out and I think actually wipes her out, at least to brings her back to version 1.0.
Yeah, and that was a cool little visual where we saw like the early incarnations of her. My favorite bit there was as she starts like losing control of talking and her voice is like cutting in and out. Timely, like kind of just to himself, like you don't need to mock or whatever. There's no reason.
I know, yeah, it's stuttering.
Thinks she's mocking the stuttering. It's like she's not. She's just dying effectively. At least that's how she feels.
Yeah. She says like she's losing her mind, which I think could be a reference to Hal from 2001 A Space Odyssey, because he says the same thing at one point. Now, last week, we had talked about how Miss Minutes had got a race like this in order for He Who Remains to not bump into her when changing the chess AI into her. Lots of time you look, you get it if there's 2 Miss Minutes at the end of time and thus one had to die here so He Who Remains could discover a younger version. In the end, she says, I got to tell you one thing, and then goes really sinister and says, you'll never be him.
You'll never be him. That's right. Yeah.
Which foreshadows what comes in the end.
Which makes me think he will be him, but
I
don't know. We'll find out.
Yep. Turning into a crude original clock that looks like the DOS system, and then close in on the Kang, reminding us that there's many, many out there of the versions. And as the power cuts out, Brad wanders into the corridors, which is when Loki challenges him to a rematch. And being enchanted, he re-enters, and I love how he kind of makes his mannerisms feminine to show it's actually Sylvie in control.
Yeah, like you knew it was Sylvie right away, but I did not expect what she said. She's like, "Oh, I didn't think I'd see you so soon," and pruned Ravonna.
Yeah,
like she had to take some satisfaction from that one.
Yeah, and I think one could see it as pretty bad, but we all know what has happened from season 1. Like, is she really dead, or did she end up in whatever the void is now?
I assume she's at the void. She's potentially ready to face Goliath. Trying to get back out, or if she could figure that out. Like I assume she is still alive because, as far as we know, everybody that gets pruned is alive. Up at least until they get there. Whether or not they get killed by Goliath, who knows? But we don't even know the status of Goliath now after last season.
We don't know the status of Goliath. We don't know the status of the other variant Lokis. I had a factor of fiction going into this, or at some point saying we would not see any variants of Loki. Yes, I know technically Sylvie is, but I'm talking about like other variants or variants we've seen at that point. So we'll have to see if we'll get a visit. Now Victor does put his hand in the scanner, which is sort of like an MRI machine, and lifts the lockdown, and up go the shutters, and Victor realizes it would make Victor realize it has to be him. This reminded me a lot of the Hulk during Endgame when he said he was the one who built it built to carry out the snap.
Yeah, he's like, I was literally made for this because it's so much gamma radiation, and Victor says it has to be him. I wish we could get a copy of that book. Does the book tell him it has to be him? Did OB write something in the book about it being him? Does it serve as part of a diary at all? And it's from so long ago that even OB doesn't necessarily remember everything that's in it. I don't know. But somehow Victor decides this is his moment. He's going to be a hero, basically.
Got to be brave.
And as a result of that, he's the one who dons a suit. It looks like they fixed the helmet. I didn't see any duct tape or anything on the cracks there, but he's the one who decides he's going to do it. And I really thought it was going to end up being Loki or something like that. And so when Victor says it has to be him, did not expect that.
Yeah, and so he goes out there and he barely makes a step out, and the music goes up and then turns into spaghetti. He gone.
He's gone, and potentially so are my loop
A-
theories. Maybe
a-
not. We'll find out.
and no, I don't think I don't think you're
There's
too still far off.
there's room for it to be there still, and
There is, because if you think, yeah, I'll get into it a little bit, but the idea that Victor's stepping up, it's all part of the plan.
it's absolutely part of the plan. The question is, he got Mr. Fantastic. Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of too. I'm not gonna lie. It's what is so the screen goes white. We get a look at Loki's face. They cut to black and it's over, right? Which is how I thought Infinity War was going to end. Snap, flash a light, cut to black, it's over. I'm now wondering, like, what's happening? Did we just see more multiverses get created? Did our team in the TVA get scattered across the multiverse on different branches? Did Victor himself, like, there's a fun theory going around that every strand of spaghetti is a different version of King who's going to be on a different Earth. I don't know if I necessarily buy that one, but I think it's really compelling. Like, are we going to see him? Are we going to see Victor Timely again? I don't know, but I'm like, is it Thursday yet? Like, I'm really, really ready for this Thursday. Like, Thursday, 8:00. Oh, wait, I think I'm not going to get to watch till like 8:30. And now I'm really lamenting the Marvels coming out on the finale week because I'm like, that's going to put me back. I watched them both that night, but it's going to put me back longer from getting to see it. There's going to be part of me in the Marvels wanting to get to Loki.
Oh yeah,
and
there
so I'm
definitely
like,
will.
I'm like, come on.
We need to talk about, like, I've seen some people having similar ideas that I'm going to share on this, in the sense of like where we've gone and some theories, where we're going. So I talked about a couple weeks ago, and you brought it up last week, called the bootstrap paradox.
Mm-hmm.
And in that, a scientist discovers a book that details how a person is going to build a time machine. They do this and then travel back and leave themselves the book, and the cycle continues on for eternity. Now, I know like I said, we talked about it a lot, but we kind of need to talk about what happens at this moment here. We've seen what initially appeared to be the paradox at play when He Who Remains getting Ravonna to leave himself the book, Victor Timely. We've seen what initially appeared to be the paradox at play when He Who Remains getting Ravonna to leave himself the book. That's kind of what she was supposed to do, according to Miss Minutes. Now, the first possibility is that it was all a mistake. And Victor Timely wasn't supposed to die here, but they left things too late. This now means that there'll be no He Who Remains, and someone still must carry the burden of sitting in his spot. Cycle is now broken, and from here on out, there are no set rules on how things are going to go.
Right,
the Council of Kings will continue their work, and one of them will probably come up on top. It's Kang's nature to never to have a partner. It's kind of like why we can only have, in the Sith world in Star Wars, you can only have two Sith because they end up just murdering each other at that point.
Even though I totally agree with Snell, and there's a lot more of them running around.
Totally.
They're all Sith.
Yep.
Let's be real. They're all Sith. I'm sorry.
This could possibly lead us into a story based on Agent of Asgard, in which an older version of Loki ruled over everything. After heading into the White Void, a young Loki encountered him, and it was revealed that he'd rule over everything. Now, I feel that this could possibly be the case with Loki taking the role of He Who Remains. I put that out there. I'm going to continue to point it out there until it's proven wrong. So that's one theory I think is going on. What do you think about that?
I mean, yeah, they flat out talked about Loki, like the concept of Loki taking the reins in this episode. Does it technically mean it would be this Loki that we've come to think of as our Loki, even though he was a variant of our Loki? I mean, maybe not, but it is, like I said when you did that Fact or Fiction, it is super compelling to think of him getting back and hooking up with the Avengers, and it's super compelling to think of him as He Who Remains, as the new He Who Remains. What would he try and do differently, or would he not do anything differently, and he'd come around to the side of what Mobius was, or of what He Who Remains was doing? I right now, I mean, quite literally, I feel like every single variation of theory is on the table, right? Somebody said, like, Mobius is going to wake up on Deadpool's Earth and we're going to see Ryan Reynolds. I'm like, okay, it's on the table. I guess there's a non-zero chance. I'm certainly betting against it, but this kind of stuff does feel possible to me, like that they could do something, but maybe not Ryan Reynolds, but maybe one of them would show up if somewhere else on the Sacred Timeline, and maybe Miss Marvel would make an appearance. I don't know, just spitballing. Like
Yeah.
it, I feel like we could see variations of different characters. I would love to see some different Thors as a result of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So here's the other possibility, that there's actually two timelines here. Victor dying could make them end up encountering another Kang, and then that's the one who ends up becoming He Who Remains. In order for them to meet him, this needs to happen, and this is why Victor from the Sacred Timeline was given the book. The reason it's sacred is because this Kang variant has to be the one who gets the book, and thus his death will lead to other things happening. In order for He Who Remains to be found in this timeline needs to be kept intact, which in the end is why He Who Remains sees it as sacred. This is why he picked Ravonna especially, and it's clear he's been playing her this entire time. Now, when Loki and Mobius arrived, we saw that they were in a branch timeline, so maybe He Who Remains is still in the sacred one when Victor then goes into the offshoot branch timeline where he dies. Also, forgot to mention that yeah, oh, never mind. That's something different. But yeah, so that's another theory I've been seeing going around.
Yeah, I think everything up to this point in the TVA was one timeline, right? Like my wife was talking about it, and she was like, "Well, is he on the same branch right here or not?" It's like, yeah, in the TVA, my understanding is same timeline. So when we saw Loki get pruned by the other Loki, it was just a older and younger Loki, granted by days, but still older and younger Loki on the same timeline. I don't think they all are on the same timeline, and maybe for the first time we're about to see branched versions of the TVA.
Okay. So this is actually coming from Heavy Spoilers, this last one, and I found it very intriguing. He was saying that as we know, he who remains will eventually be born again, and he'll end the multiverse war by destroying everything. In order to do this, though, he has to wipe out every other Kang, which this entire plan might have been the goal. He Who Remains could have know that Victor would have to die, and thus set things into place to kill one of his variants. I think this hint from Heavy Spoilers saying, I think that man's going after the council, and he could even be the version we encountered in Quantum Mania. That guy we never saw a body, and potentially we would have went down deeper into the quantum realm. The council talked about he was in exile, and potentially this was because he was turning against them. He Who Remains is actually based on Immortus, who in the comics was an older version of Kang. We learned that he actually played along with the council to get all in one place so that he could wipe them all out after all. So potentially this move was a masterful one by him to take out one of his variants and unleash the timelines to kill the rest. In the end, the loom exploding unleashes it all, and now every timeline across the multiverse will be free.
And we've talked about for a while that it seems like all the Marvel universes are still, they're valid, right? They may not all be part of the sacred timeline, but they're all valid. And this feels like it's just we thought what we saw at the end of season 1 was the multiverse exploding open. This feels right now more like the real explosion that is birthed, like full on, like kicking the doors open. Multiverse is there. We'll find out. I mean, there's so many like different theories going around, and I don't think I've seen any yet that I can't convince myself is a plausible theory. Like the door's wide open. They could literally go anywhere.
And we will have to see next week with the penultimate episode of Loki season 2. So we'll just have to see, and we'll also have to see, will Miss Minutes return and get even creepier?
I don't think we've seen the last of her. I'll go that far.
Yeah, I will agree with that. So, all right. So we've only got one news item this week, and it literally came in a few hours ago. We were going to have no news to talk about, and then Hollywood Reporter gifted us this little gem. And it's from our favorite Devil in Hell's Kitchen. So Daredevil TV series lands new showrunner and director is coming in as exclusive from the Hollywood Reporter. They say Marvel Studios Daredevil has a new creative team. Dario Scardapane, whose recent credits include Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan, as well as Netflix's Marvel show The Punisher, has been tapped to act as the new showrunner for the series, which is in the midst, as they say, in a creative overhaul. Additionally, Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, the co-directing team behind the indie genre film thrillers who are coming off of directing episodes of Loki Season 2, have been hired to helm the remaining episodes that will constitute the first season. So, we talked about in this show, they've gone through a big creative overhaul in this. They're quote unquote, I don't think they're going back to formula, but they are coming close to doing that on the show. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, Dario Scardapane. The fact that he worked on both Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan in a capacity that I really enjoyed that show, and he was a producer slash and a writer on the Punisher, which I don't know if I've ever made this clear, but I love the Punisher series
Yep.
from the Defender saga.
Same.
Like I love both seasons. I love them, and so like I saw this news. It was actually Jim Scroggs who sent this to me first, and I'm reading this and I'm just like blown away. Like this is fantastic. Like yes, please. Like nothing's been announced, but we pretty much know that the Punisher is going to be making an appearance. I love the idea of having someone involved back in those seasons in this show. And again, with Jack Ryan, he was his IMDb credits consulting producer. I saw a reference that he did do some writing on it as well. I really enjoyed those as well. I don't know specifically what episodes he worked on, but overall, I love it. I'm like, yes, perfect. You have to have a showrunner now. You're bringing in this guy who worked on that show. And not that everything they do has to have the same tone, but if you want to keep a similar tone, this is sure going to go a long ways to help that.
Oh, I completely agree at that point. Scardapane will write new episodes and new scenes, incorporating what was already shot. Benson and Moorhead will direct the new episodes to bring the first season to a close. It is unclear how many episodes it will encompass. Corman and Ord will become executive producers. And so the hiring of a showrunner is part of the large overhaul and how it makes TV for Disney Plus. The company previously made its shows much like it's made its movies, but as THR previously reported, they say Marvel has reconfigured its model, embracing traditional TV concepts such as showrunners and pilots and series Bibles. A little bit about Benson and Moorhead had the breakthrough with the Cult Circus hits, The Endless, Spring, and Synchronic. They sometimes do all the heavy lifting on their movies, from writing, acting, and directing, and producing to shooting, editing, and visual effects. The duo directed 2 episodes of Moon Knight, which starred Oscar Isaac, and 2 episodes of this season 2 of Loki, which is currently, as we're going over.
Which includes episode 4 that we just watched.
Yep. It did. Scardapane, a journalist turned screenwriter who got his breakthrough when he co-wrote the Mario Van Peebles Western Posse, his considerable TV experience in the thriller game. He created and executive produced the NBC medical drama Trauma, and served as consultant for the Peabody Award-winning FX crime drama The Bridge, which starred Damian Beecher and Diane Kruger. Returning to NBC, served as the showrunner for the Katherine Heigl, Alfred Woodard political drama The State of Affairs before moving into streaming television, serving as the writer and executive producer on The Punisher. Most recently, he was a writer and consulting producer on Amazon's Jack Ryan.
Right. And I talked about Scardapane a little bit. Benson and Moorhead, I enjoyed their work on Moon Knight quite a bit. I was happy to find out that they were going from Moon Knight to Loki. I want to say they also did the first episode, which I thought was pretty strong of this season as well. I'd have to fact check that, but I believe it's the first episode. And I know it's the one that we just watched, episode 4. Such a great team. And they have to be, it's people who've already been working in the Marvel universe, right? Like Benson and Moorhead, like the guys were talking earlier in the chat, like it seems like we might start seeing them pop up more and more places, because this is now going to be the 3rd project that they've had a part of. And then combined with the Marvel history, with the Netflix Defenders history from Scardapane, I was obviously already really hyped for this project. This just increases my overall hype for it. Like I am very excited at these names that they've added to this project. Again, I'm not happy that I have to wait longer for it,
Mhm.
but I will wait longer for it with a smile if it is even close to as good as I feel like they're setting themselves up to be.
Yeah, let's just let the plan keep moving, let it keep moving forward. But yeah, so that is all the news for this week. So nice little surprise at the end of the week. Thank you, Hollywood Reporter's Heat Vision, for breaking that story. And we're going to take our final ad break before we get a feedback, Factor Fictions, and Comic Book Clubs. So listeners, these ads help keep the lights on at Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. We don't get to choose what ads come on, and they could be a bit loud. Give you that 3 count before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. And we are back. All right, Brent. So, uh, feedback, and we got one. We can start off with the one from All in the Game, since it's tied to Loki. It's tied to Loki a little bit with this. So, All in the Game says there's gonna be a decent gap between this season and Kang Dynasty. How is the gap going to be addressed with the overall multiverse storyline?
I mean, there is a decent gap. Like if they somehow keep the King Dynasty release date, which is what is it May of 2025? I think, or did that get passed to May 26th? I don't. I feel like I don't even remember anymore.
And honestly, we're so far away. You could be right on both
You know what? I
counts.
think it got moved to 26. It let's say it did get 26. So we're looking at, over north of 2 years. Like that is a long time,
Hmm.
but there's still enough time for them to do other projects that lead and build into the multiverse more. I think we can safely assume at this point Deadpool is doing that, right? Like we know Deadpool is going to do
Hmm.
that. Other objects could. What are they going to be? I don't know. But at some point they're going to need to do something to get some of this into the movies to catch people up who didn't see the Disney Plus shows.
Yeah, like you said, Deadpool's easy. That's low hanging fruit. Fantastic Four is another low hanging fruit. They could do that,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of whether Kang is going to be not a descendant of Reed Richards. Um, there is potential there in post credit scenes, which is where they kind of use Thanos with it. But yeah, it's gonna have they're gonna have to do a better job, because that's been, I think, one of the biggest complaints about the new quote unquote multiversal saga, that it's only been until it took till phase 5 to really start looking at it hard. I mean, yeah, we had Loki season 1, but it was more the beginnings. We didn't really start delving into it, and now we're just scratching the surface.
Right, completely agree.
So, what else we got for questions?
A couple others. One from Phil: do we think that Ravonna will die by the end of the season, and also consequently, is she going to leave both Loki and Sylvie? Will this leave both Loki and Sylvie as the new head of the TVA? I think that Ravonna may die by the end of the season, but I don't think this will be the end of the character Ravonna Renslayer. I think there will at least be a variant with us through King Dynasty. As far as the heads of the TVA, we addressed that earlier.
Yeah, it's one of those things, like I want to see, because I don't. We can kind of see just a little bit of, like, he who remains caring for Ravonna, but I don't get the love story yet that we got in the comics. So I'm not sure.
Oh
We'll
yeah,
see.
it's. I feel like there's been hints of a possibility of it, like allusions to it, but it's certainly not there as strong. I mean, we've seen more on that front from Miss Minutes than we've seen from King and Ravonna for sure.
Hmm. So
And then from Omari Daniels, would we like to see more Marvel Disney Plus shows eventually air on network television like Miss Marvel did last summer?
I think that they should do that, in the sense of not with every one of them, but I think if they want to be kind of a subscriber kind of taste, yes, they should do this. I don't think it needs to be with everything, but I think they need to pick and choose.
I think it is absolutely brilliant marketing to do that. They put
Hmm.
Miss Marvel out relatively shortly before the Marvels. Get more people to be introduced, have the opportunity to be introduced to Kamala Khan before it. I agree they don't necessarily need to do it with everything, and that does sort of mess with my OCD. That's like WandaVision should be first, and then Falcon and Winter Soldier, and so on. But I actually do think they should do Falcon and Winter Soldier prior to Captain America: Brave New World coming out. It just
Yeah.
seems like a slam dunk. Plus, in the case of Miss Marvel, they needed content. needed content or the TV from the strikes. You know,
Mhm.
again, not that I don't support the actors, but from a business standpoint, brilliant move. You've already got
Mhm.
this show. It's already paid for. Throw out a couple ad spots, put it on. You advertise your upcoming like it makes so much sense. I haven't heard. I hope that people who made the show got paid extra for this, but I somehow doubt that they did. But I hope that they did. I'm sure, but to the letter of the contract, they didn't have to be. So I doubt they did. That seems like the kind of thing studios are doing. But just from the business side of it, I think it was a brilliant move. So yes, hopefully they do more of those.
Yeah, hopefully. So that all we got?
It is. I did want to say we did have one question come in on the Insomniac
Oh,
Spider-Man
yep.
game. I am through the main story. You can DM me questions to it now, but please don't tag us yet because Chris has not seen it. And I technically still have some side stuff to go, but I'll probably be done through the side stuff this weekend. It's looking like. So or at least close enough to it that I'm past anything I care about spoilers for. So you can DM me those questions and I'll save them up and we're going to talk about the show probably after Loki, right? I think that's what we
Yeah.
said.
Mhm.
And so we will when we talk about it, we can go through those questions then.
Yeah, the new job and everything has kept me, needing to be ready for this new job at that point. So I've been kind of, again, this I would love to play more Spider-Man. I got a few hours in last week and I'll be getting more in this weekend, but I probably, even when we talk about it, I may not have beaten it because I like enjoying the game. So even
Mhm.
if we talk about stuff, we'll see how far I get. But yes, I am no I don't even know if I'm like 3 or 4% through it at this
Well,
point.
for what
So
it's worth, there are 31 main story missions.
okay.
And you go to the missions tab, it'll tell you like completed 3 of 31. And so you'll that'll give you an idea through the main story how far you are. But there are and I don't want to ruin them for you, so I don't even
Yeah.
want to tell you which ones.
That's
There are
fine.
side stories especially one that I absolutely like. You should do that one too. But you'll get there. You'll get to them
I'll
all,
get there.
right? But you need the time. Take your time, enjoy it. Like
Yeah.
I could have been done with the main story date several days ago, but I was just having fun swinging around and doing the little
Mhm.
crimes that pop up and just doing side stuff like playing the side quest game. And it wasn't until playing on my son's account because he knows you go to the yellow dot, and
Yeah.
so it wasn't like he's flying through the story, and I'm like. Oh man, I cannot let him catch up with me because I absolutely cannot let him have my first time being watching this stuff be with him because he's going to talk to me through it and he's going to
Mhm.
be commentating on it. Plus, because I know he's not listening right now, but he will later. David got to 30, mission 30 before he had to leave for his trip. Like he had to go to bed because he
Oh.
had to his flight was leaving at like 7 in the morning, right? And David always laughs at me because he sees all the movies before I do. And I
Yep.
got this one first. I gotta finish
You get
this story
all
first. So
all you need is one. You got that one, you know?
yeah,
I
that's right. At least I got this. But
you know what?
I will spoil my thoughts and just say I was very very happy with it.
I'll take that because just getting a little sports ball into there. I'm a UNC grad twice over, so go Tar Heels at that point.
There you go.
Duke can beat us at different points, but you know what we did? We beat them in the Final Four. Something no one ever thought we would get that matchup. We beat them in the Final Four. It doesn't matter. That's our national
You'll
championship,
always have that.
and we will always have that, and they never will have that right now. So
That's right.
yep. So all right. So fact or fiction. Let me pull up those results. Here's me being behind at that point, but let me get to them. These were Travis's, I believe.
Yep.
All right. So fact or fiction number one. Here we are. So number one. He Who Remains will show up in a post-credit scene in 2 of the next 5 MCU projects. 43% said fact, 57% said fiction. I could see one. I'm not sure if I see 2. Number 2. OB will run the TV at the end of the season. 40% said fact, 60% said fiction. Yeah, I no. Maybe. I'm not sure. Not sure on
Okay.
that one. Yeah. Number 3. We will visit the timeline Mobius was taken this season. 100% fact. Yes, I think that was low hanging fruit for Travis.
Yeah, he was like, I'm doing one I think is a fact. It's like that, or I think it's fiction. Like that's allowed. Like
Yeah,
we
that's a
don't
lot. We
always
do.
do ones we think are facts.
Oh hey, oh yeah, I do a lot of those. I'll even do all of them that I think are fiction sometimes. Sylvie will be a member of the TV by the end of the season. 38% said facts, 62% said fiction. Maybe I've got a different Sylvie one that will be kind of going against that idea. So,
Okay, well, I look forward to hearing that.
all right,
Hopefully
so
tonight.
let it, yes, tonight, and let's start off with that one. So, fact or fiction? Sylvie will be killed at the end of Loki season 2.
Okay, when you say killed,
She's not in the void, gone, dead.
like
No resurrections.
no resurrections this time. Does that include like Sophia DiMartino is gone as well?
Stop it.
I'm gonna say fact. I think she's gonna live past this one.
Okay. Well, you're saying fiction.
Okay, fiction. Sorry, I had it backwards. You said she will be killed.
Yeah, she
okay.
will be
Then
killed.
fiction, she's going to live.
Yeah, I've kind of go back and forth, and I'm gonna say fact because it's going in the sense of like the idea of Loki's not always getting to win. And so I'm not sure I'm ready to see Loki kind of keep Sylvie around.
I don't know. She went from what she was doing to working at McDonald's. Like,
Yeah.
did she win? Really? Did she win?
No, I'm talking about
And
this Loki. You know.
Oh, I just thought
Yeah.
you meant Sylvie as a Loki winning by
Yeah.
surviving. I mean, she not that McDonald's isn't a perfectly fine job, but it doesn't feel like a win. You know, when she goes from living in Asgard to ending up there. But I guess look at what she did
Yeah.
in the middle. Maybe
It's not a hard fact, but just to go counter on it, it's like a 51%.
All right.
All right, next one. We will see MCU Disney Plus shows no longer beholden to the 6-episode structure moving forward.
I mean, you should probably clarify 6 or 9 because we've had 3 that were 9, but
we don't have any problems with the 9s.
Well, I just mean as we will start to see. Well, you could argue they're not beholden to it now by the presence of the 9s.
Yeah,
but
well, you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean. You mean we will see new episode counts.
Yes, new episode. Like it'll be what we've been asking for. Do the amount of counts, what needs to do a good story.
This is so hard, especially with Daredevil, because they announced it as like 18 episodes, which
I don't think that's the norm.
No, I think that's changing. Or it's going to be like the first season is this many, the next season, like maybe it'll be an 18 episode series. But I'm going to say fiction because I want them to do it, but I don't think they will.
I'm gonna go fact on this one. I think that
I hope we get this one.
Yeah, the idea that they're making some changes and seeing and doing I don't think we're going to see 24 episodes, but I could see maybe, like you said, we've had a few 9s, but it has not been the norm, the 9.
The one thing that'll help is basically the comments in that article from Daredevil about Daredevil, where they basically said some more episodic and more multi-season shows. That will certainly lend itself to being able and willing to do longer seasons, I think.
Yeah,
because
All the game brings out the point. The 9s are the 30-minute shows.
Well, right, the 9s are the 30-minute shows roughly, but regardless, so we've had mostly 6-episode shows, a few 9-episode shows. Yes, technically, one of those What If was supposed to be 10, but for what they've actually delivered, it's been 9s. I want to see some 7s, some 8s. I'd be super interested in like a 3 just to see what they would do there. Like, just mix it up, as I've been saying. I will die on this hill. Follow Star Wars lead in this case and mix it up based on the project.
Get weird, get some strange, it'd be fine,
Yeah, a 3-episode series could be really cool. I hope it's better than the last 3-episode series I watched.
I was about to say,
don't need to name names, but I'm still not opposed to the format.
Yeah. All right, speaking of another format change, here's another one, last one. Special presentations will now solely be used to hype up a major project. And what I mean by major projects are like Fantastic Four and X-Men.
How do I answer if I think it's possible we are done with special presentations?
I was tempted to put that, but my heart wouldn't let me. So in the sense of like they're only going to be used for like the biggest,
and it's hard because they've basically done one of each: a super obscure character and one with the Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm gonna say yes. I'll say fact. Like yes, like going on the premise that they're still going to be around. Yes, they will be used primarily to hype up bigger things like movies, be a lead into the movie.
And I'll also be a fact in this one, just because like I don't want to see them go. I would completely understand if they do, in the sense of like honing in on the tightening the cost and not damaging the brand with too much content out there. But I think there is a place for it. You know.
Yeah, and especially thinking about it more, in the case of Guardians, they reused a lot of sets that they already had, right? Like all the nowhere stuff, like they already had it. And so and they were already shooting, they did it in the middle of shooting the volume 3, which has to cut down on the production costs because you've already assembled a crew and stuff. Yeah, I think it makes sense. All in the game. If Blade had turned up at the end of Werewolf by Night, would that have counted? Would that have counted for you if Blade had turned up there?
I think it'd be a gray area I would accept.
Yeah, especially let's say a Blade movie was in
And
production,
I
like
mean that pun
real
intended.
production right
And,
now.
and I
A
mean
gray
that
area.
pun intended gray
I still
area.
haven't watched a color one. I want to, but
I haven't either.
And I saw some pictures, and I'm like, I do actually. The black and white is the original, so it's still the winner. But I want to. But regardless, I think I would accept that more if like the Blade movie was further along than its seventh writer or whatever it is.
Yeah. So, all right. So I will post those on Sunday afternoon, and I know this week I totally flaked on it again. Mine is not where it was. I posted these on Monday, but I will get back to posting it on Sunday, even though I just was driving around having some fun with my daughter that day, and I missed my reminder. So forgive me. Needed to be a dad. So
Well, that happens.
Yep. All right, so let us conclude this episode with heading back into Comic Book Club, The Punisher issue 6.
Mhm.
So, Brent, what did you think of this issue?
Well, it's picking up right where the last one went off of, like, hey, I know where the Punisher lives, and I was thinking that last issue, that guy was somebody from his building. I'm actually kind of glad it's not, because he seemed friendly with everyone from his building. It's a guy from across the street. It's close, but sure. I really enjoyed the way they cut between the 3 different stories and the 3 different vigilantes of the Punisher and the news source stuff and stuff. The Punisher, the Elite, and oh gosh, I'm forgetting the other guy's name.
Is it
Payback?
Payback, yeah, Payback.
Yeah,
yep.
and but can I just ask about the Elite? What is with this guy in the shower? He's in the shower. He's just sitting there in a towel. He's wet. He just clearly turned off the water. He has a gun hidden in the drop ceiling of wherever they're at. You have a drop ceiling in your hat. Like, that's weird, but fine. I'll accept all that. But he takes the time to put on the mask before shooting the gun that nobody can see him anyway.
It's just you got to commit. You got to commit to this whole thing.
I mean, I'm like, but it gets him in the headspace, I guess.
I just find it interesting. Like, he just happened to be looking out the window and just happened to see these people that he assumed were coming after him, and just like takes him out. And it's like, oh, okay. I mean, comic book logic, but yeah, that just seems a little too convenient.
I mean, Payback is there. It'll be fun to watch the Punisher whoop him up, but I'm super curious about the Elite in this one.
Yeah,
we didn't get anything from our church, from our priest or whatever he is. So
yeah, this was our first issue in a while. The first issue that completely no mention of it.
I think there was one little reference to, a whole bunch of killings of a bunch of people who attend this one church, but that was it. And I'd be curious. I'm very curious about him and about the Elite. Payback, just show me the fight.
Yeah, and I love it that Punisher's just basically, all right, tonight I'm taking down Maguchi and everything like that. And a tipster, kind of like you said, just kind of tells them where they can find him at that point, and they go after him, and Punisher does what Punisher does and starts taking people out left and right.
It was, this is a little demented, but story of my life. It was funny when that one henchman is talking to Maguchi, and he's like, 10 days ago, hey, that's the night of the zoo thing, remember? And she's just like, well, I'm hardly likely to forget. It's like,
yeah,
looking at her like, the polar bear or whatever it was, like, bit off her arms and legs. She's like, how am I ever going to forget that night?
Yeah, thanks. Hey, can you take him out, please? Just, I can only handle so much idiots.
I definitely laughed at that, though.
Great splash page of Punisher with the rail gun.
Yes, absolutely. Those I see those kind of pages, and I'm like, Can you just give us a version that like the next page is the same thing without the lettering and stuff? Just let me see the art.
And it's very, I'll say this, this is not a title for youngins and everything
No,
like
no, no,
that.
no.
But I will have to applaud. It is Marvel, but they also have this. I don't know. This wasn't part of Max line at this point, but they've done a very good job in the sense of like the fire and bullets. We don't see blood. We just assume that get shot in the head. You go down at
I mean,
that point. But
there's definitely some blood, but you're right. It's not like gratuitous. And then I say that as I'm flipping back through the issue, and I'm like, oh yeah, of course on the last page he turns that guy's head around. But
which is, yeah, it is what it is at that point. But yeah, we Punisher's not looking too good right now. He does take down one last person before he goes down.
that he does. That he does.
So, but yeah, we will see what happens to Frank Castle in issue number 7. So Brent, a long episode, but like we both were talking a lot about Loki, but it was a good episode.
Yeah, I told my daughter, I'm like, this is not going to be a short episode tonight. Don't look for me to be done anytime soon. But yeah. So I'm on Twitter, X, or whatever. I won't call it X. I'm on Twitter, Brentech Prime. And everywhere else I'm at, I am also on Brentech Prime. So.
Yep, and want to thank our sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com. Use that code MarvelGUA at checkout to get $2 off every single order. And you can follow me on all the socials at Chris Balga. You can email the show at marvelalliancepodcast@gmail.com. You can follow the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network on Twitter at GUA Pod Network. Feel free to tweet, email if you want to provide feedback, ask questions. DMs are open across all our socials. Continue to rate and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcast. We greatly appreciate it. Thank y'all for sticking with us live tonight. You had some great back and forths. Thank you all for listening. And as always, stay safe out there, everyone. And as Stan the Man would say, Excelsior, true believers. All right, Brent. So you and I got a little gift, not necessarily a gift, but we ordered something that finally came in.
I mean, it's a gift from ourselves, but yeah,
it's a gift for ourselves. There we go.
I'm going to be honest. I haven't, other than like skimming the forward, and I do mean skimming the forward, I haven't read it at all.
Yeah, you've done more than me at that point because the story came out that we're talking about. Yeah, the Marvel Studios, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and official timeline. So, we've always talked about in the sense of like how things are organized when it comes to the MCU. For they've had some big flub ups like Homecoming at that point, which they do acknowledge from what I understand in the book. But it's one of those interesting things that Mr. Feige said something where there's a little bit of discourse going on. So, Brent, you dropped it in the chat. Thankfully, I didn't have to get it at that point. You've done that for me. So, what do you got?
Yeah, it feels like people are misunderstanding some basic reading on this between this and the WandaVision quote. Oh, WandaVision's dead. It doesn't say it's dead. It says the thread is ended. I just had to throw that in there while we're talking about this. Mm-hmm. But Feige says, and again, this is from the MCU timeline book, the official one. On the multiverse note, we recognize that there are stories, movies, and series that are canonical to Marvel, but were created by different storytellers during different periods of Marvel's history. The timeline presented in this book is specific to the MCU's sacred timeline through Phase 4. But as we move forward and dive deeper into the multiverse saga, you never know when timelines may just crash or converge. Hint,
converge.
Hint, spoiler
converge.
alert. Converge. Yeah, there's that word. That word's not on accident by any means. This basically, to me, confirms what we've pretty much all been talking about since Spider-Man No Way Home.
Yep.
It's all Marvel. It all counts. It's all there. It's just not all on the MCU proper sacred timeline.
Yeah, I liked it how, like, I kind of chuckled in the sense where some people were losing their minds about this. I was like, I mean, I'm glad it's finally confirmed, but I think we've known this for a long time at that point, and just seeing Kevin Feige write it in this book is just kind of, all right, thank you. We understand, but as you said, we're in a multiverse now, so it's canon in the multiverse, but it's not canon on a sacred timeline.
I do think this is the closest to an answer we've gotten on the Daredevil canon question and the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. canon question. Mm-hmm. There are different storytellers until they want to, have them crash or converge, as he put it. they are separate at this point. Like, and yes, I know after Daredevil and She-Hulk, they played the theme. I was like, until I'm told otherwise, it's canon. This to me feels like it is at the bare minimum, as we've talked about. They are forked off of the shared past. They have a similar past, but they're forked somewhere between it. I look forward to finding out what is there, but I disagree with the people that says a project. I understand why they feel this way, but a project has to be canon to be considered valuable,
Mhm.
worthwhile. I don't think that's the case. If you told me that Werewolf by Night was not canon to the MCU at all, it was just a fun little side thing they did because they thought it'd be fun to do, I think it's like it'd be fine. Like I would have no problems with that whatsoever. Do I prefer it when things take place in the same multiverse? Sure, I do. But this effectively makes it. And again, Spider-Man: No Way Home already did that for us. It makes all of it count in the same multiverse. That's
Mhm.
fine. Just give me the Marvel
Yeah.
logo.
Yeah, it's
Just give me the
okay.
Marvel logo.
And again, it's I still get to have the content whenever I want to watch it. It still is a part of what I enjoy about Marvel. But again, Kevin Feige is one to choose his words very carefully, and the fact that he didn't just say crash, but said converge
Hmm.
is like, oh, I remember I got a pretty big theory going into the Marvels at that point. So, um,
I
a
mean,
couple
we
of them
are. He just confirmed for us. We are going to see more of these multiverses coming and crossing
crash.
over.
Yep.
Like
Crash.
we're going to see it potentially as early as Deadpool.
Yeah. All in the Game's got a good idea for us, so we got to maybe think about this. On a slow news week, would be fun to see you both play Feige and present your own Phase 4 and 5 slates based on how it's turned out so far. Each phase would be 3 years and have a max of 12 projects in it. 2 movies and 2 shows a year in a relatively slow and steady approach. Write that down, Brent.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if this will let me copy it, but it doesn't want to do that. So I'll figure out how to get it out of there.
Yeah, but great suggestion All in the Game. That we will take you up on that. So but all right, well, we will see you all next week for the penultimate episode of Loki season 2. So y'all have a good week. We'll see you next Friday night and listening to y'all next Saturday morning. Bye bye.